next to Wendy Traxler, our good colleague from Greater Twin Cities United Way, who's going to talk to us about using data to drive campaign performance. Wendy.
Okay, thank you, Chris, so much. And welcome, everybody. We've got a big group here, but I would like to remind you, if you have questions throughout the presentations, feel free to type your questions into the chat, and we will try to answer those as we go. But I would like to start out by saying that regardless of what size United Way you are, you do have the ability to utilize a lot of data, gather a lot of data, and we'll be able to kind of implement some of these suggestions that we have during this presentation. No matter what size your shop, you may have somebody internal that, if you're not doing this now, if you don't have, you know, one specific person that is really assigned to kind of managing data and a lot of different reports and that type of thing, but it might be a development opportunity. But also look to your volunteers and to other people within your community that might be able to support this at a much deeper level than maybe what you're doing now. So just think about different resources in the community, and also look at this as, you know, how it might fit with your own specific United Way. So with that, we'll get into some details about this, and want to talk just a little bit about why we're using data. Being able to really provide ourselves with more in-depth detail about the work that we're doing. It's going to help us really take a look at facts versus assumptions. I think that's something that in the past, I know we in Twin Cities have been guilty of years ago, but since we've really started looking at data, probably in the last 10 years or more, really doing an in-depth analysis every year, we've been able to really look at these facts and turn them into strategies that can be much more effective than those assumptions that we had. And I think just becoming more advanced in the data that you're gathering is also going to be extremely helpful. So again, just thinking about your local United Way and how this might apply to your office as we're going through this. So using data in the campaign cycle. So what we've done, you know, in addition to looking at just overall revenue, it really has been helpful being able to look at the data for campaign planning, really help us uncover those trends that we maybe didn't realize until we saw the data. So making sure that you're taking a broad look at your information and different data points, being able to use that data to prioritize your accounts. Obviously, we know who those biggest customers are, but sometimes the data will uncover other opportunities to help you prioritize what those accounts should be, and we'll get into that a little bit here today. And then also segmenting those companies to determine what strategies should be used, what treatment plans you might want to use for those companies, setting your campaign goals and projections, and then also establishing that overall campaign goal and then monitoring. There's a lot of different data points that can help support that throughout your entire campaign cycle. And I will mention as well that as we go through this, there's a number of tools that Worldwide has created that we'll be calling out and for most of these steps, but then we'll also be covering some of these other topics in subsequent webinars as well. So be watching for those as on Breakfast Online as those are announced. So the overall campaign planning, to start gathering your data, I mean, to be able to analyze the data, you first have to collect it. So making sure that you are pulling out various information, you know, whether it's around the gift size and your level of donors, different sectors of your company campaigns, different industries. We talk about the demographics here. We analyze our affinity groups, so we have a women's group, emerging leaders, and a GLBT affinity group, but I know many United Ways have a few other affinity groups, but any way that you can kind of cross-section your demographics is going to be a very useful exercise. So brainstorming around what that might look like. Also looking at the trends for your corporate gifts, the donor churn rates, what's your retention for leadership donors, for Tocqueville donors, and then being able to analyze, taking that data and analyzing how that might be coming to be. Then we can start looking at what those strategies have been, what might be contributing to that, and so forth. You can also benchmark with other peer United Ways and being able to compare your local United Way to other United Ways of similar size or similar demographics as well. Also overlaying information that you can get around high net worth individuals. This might be something that you can pull from your local communities. Your states have that kind of information. And then, wondering what other areas people are gathering data on. If you have other areas, please put that in the chat box. We'd love to see what that is. Have there been other key points of data that you've started analyzing that have really made a difference in your campaign? We'd love to hear what that might be. So once we've started gathering the information, we can start analyzing those campaign results, making sure that we are pulling in a cross-functional team to really look at what that data might be. I think that's been one of the keys to success for us, is being able to pull in our marketing team, our major gifts team, actually our IT group as well. I mean, sometimes the data analysts will look at the information a little bit differently than what we as fundraisers might. So utilizing your cross-functional teams to really look at that data, help you draw some conclusions, it really has been valuable. So it's not just a fundraiser's responsibility, but bring in, again, all different departments within your shop. And again, this is some areas that we will be providing additional tools to help with as we go. So overall campaign, the data analysis tips. So again, focus on the facts, not the perceptions or not the assumptions. I think we all fall in that rut where we think we know why maybe a company has been declining or why a certain segment has been declining, but really looking at the facts of the data can really help us either confirm that, what our hypothesis might have been, but also can show various other elements that might have an impact on that segment. So making sure that we're looking at just the facts first and then being able to draw our conclusions. I think utilizing different methods of sharing that data, so whether it's numbers or the graphs or charts, everybody analyzes information differently, or they can process information differently. So being able to show the information in a variety of ways can be very helpful. And again, you'll be able to pull different ideas from different people based on how they are processing that information. Talking about dividing that information across the staff and between departments, which is great. And I've mentioned that before. This needs to be a cross-functional activity. So I think, making sure that we are pulling in people from other areas is absolutely necessary and beneficial. But looking at your comparisons and moving into the comparisons of how you've fundraised from different sources across the years, looking at that year-over-year comparison, and then again, what those long trend lines are. What's been your 5-year history? What's been a 10-year history? That can also help tell that story of where you might need to focus your time for the coming years. Looking at the trends and the gaps, the areas of strength, as I've mentioned, opportunities for growth. being able to really pull out what are some of those top data points that you think could be critical factors in moving forward and capturing that. Again, this is, I guess, kind of a one big day-long brainstorming session. We've done this in a retreat format, and it's really been helpful. And so however that works for your group, your team, making sure that you're allowing that time and then putting together that the plan to make sure that you can implement. So as